All right, so yesterday we had left off with this content here, and remember, an osteocyte is just any type of cell, okay? But one of the things that we will be discussing, one, there are two types that destroy bone tissue and others that build bone tissue. Now, and it has to be that way, just because one of the things that happens is as we get older, our bones continually have to be reshaped and remodeled due to the stresses that we put them through, and whether it's at your age, participating in athletics, or as we get older, just keep in mind one of the things that I think is fortunate for myself is, and I can't remember what class, oh, it was sophomores, I think. I said, believe it or not, I was sitting in those types of chairs too. Do you ever get tired of sitting down all day long? But that is one of the things you will continually get used to on account of when you're sitting there in your college classes next year, or if you're going to a technical school, there might be some more maybe on-the-job work where you're maybe in the lab walking around. But anyway, your bones are continually reshaped. Okay. And this is one of those types of cells that do this. But anyway, as far as intramembranous bones, okay, one of the things that happens is this is setting the stage for a process that we call ossification. And what that means is as we begin our life in the womb, okay, your body, you do have some bones in your mother's womb as you develop, but there are many spots that are still composed of cartilage yet, and it has to be that way. Okay? And we'll discuss why that is in just a few moments. So we got a little bit of review that we want to go over, but we want to get through this slide and the next one and the next one. So 2 more after this. Then I've got that skull out, and then go over some of them bones. Okay. And one thing that I have noticed is some of you are looking on, and that's great too. You're taking initiative to do this, to learn this content, because we can see why it's valid or what the validity is. We're just not giving you these set of bones and say, hey, memorize these, because what you're telling yourself is, I'm going to have to know this in 1, 2, 3 years down the road, or maybe even in a more continual sense, the more anatomy classes you may have to take. But we all have to start somewhere, and it's refreshing to see that initiative taking or doing that. I don't know why this does this on PowerPoint. I don't know if it fits it to the slide. Can we read? Can we read all this? Okay.
For the external auditory medias, did you need the acoustic?
Yeah, same thing. It opens up to the ear canal. Yeah. So, how do you think if you see a term called osteoblast and an osteoclast, I can see how that would be confusing. They're both bone forming cells or bone destroying. And one way to maybe keep them separate is the osteoblasts. Don't think of blast like munitions or explosives. That osteoblasts build materials. Osteoclasts take it down. Since the blast has a B in it, that's what you're using to build your skeletal tissue. So osteoblasts build skeletal tissue, as far as osteoclasts then reabsorb it or dissolve it, if you want to call it that. And is it possible that maybe some of you that do talk to other students from other schools, maybe you're friends with them at other schools, that is this class even offered that you know of? It probably is, but that would be awful to not have that ability or have to do this online maybe. Where, and some people can do that where there's really no one pointing them in the right direction. You're all on your own, and I think that would be awful. I don't think I would like to do a class that way, but so it goes. So I see there's one slide left. Do you have to write anything for osteoclast? Probably. Just write down what it is. You technically have the definition because it's on your vocab sheet or on your handout, but we'll just go ahead and go through the process of writing it down. So then hopefully we can put that into your memory bank. But sometimes, do you ever think at your age, how am I ever going to remember all of this? Do you ever think that or no? Sometimes. You will actually be surprised how much you're going to remember from high school 5 years, 10 years down the road. How much we hated class from 8:30 to 10:30 every day. Oh, I didn't say which year, though. Okay. So the last thing, I want you to write down what osteoclasts actually are and do. So remember, if osteoblasts build bone tissue, because it's got a B in it, so it builds it, osteoclasts then break down calcified bony matrix. And again, it has to be that way. Otherwise, these bones could not be continually reshaped the way that they need to be in order to fit the, the stresses that we put them through on a regular basis. Because you probably already know this. Which bone is that?
Femur.
Too high. Femur. Yep. It's also the largest bone in the body is your femur. Okay. So one of the things that I want you to see, you're writing this stuff down, but maybe don't really know why you're writing it down. Okay. The epiphyseal plate. Okay. Is that growth? And what type of bone would you consider this or this? Since they're long, of course, they're going to be long bones. Here's your humerus here, and then here's your femur over here. Okay. Now, how do I need to stand to get in the light so we can actually see that? I think that'll work. Okay. So on this bone, between my fingers here, is this the diaphysis or the epiphysis? Right here, do you think? What's another term for the shaft of a long bone? The shaft is the diaphysis, so then between my fingers here would be the epiphysis, okay? The reason that's important is, remember one of the things we said in class yesterday or maybe on Monday, the epiphyseal plate is where actually growth is going to occur. So in or about this general vicinity, that's where this bone, if it's short, it's going to start growing vertically and that way and that way. The growth does not occur here because that's the shaft or the diaphysis. So the epiphysis is where this will grow and get larger. And notice, okay, kind of has an irregular shape here, don't it? Okay? But this fits into one of the functions of what bones do. They protect, they support, they store minerals, they produce blood cells, and that's 4. There's one more, and provide protection. Or did I say that twice? I said that twice. Okay, so they protect, provide, create movement because of levers. Okay? So there's a reason that you have these structures on here. They're continually reshaped by those two types of cells, osteoclasts and osteoblasts, so that muscles can attach to these structures. And that's why they have to continually be reshaped. Okay? Also, again, this is one of the things you wrote down. You really don't know what it means. Develop from masses of hyaline cartilage are shaped like future bony structures. This intermembranous bones. That occurs when you are an infant in your mother's womb, or for those of you who do decide to further down the road, if you decide to start a family, you will go through that same process then as well with that of infants. So, where do you think is the major portion that as a child is being born, coming down the birth canal, where do those bones really have to be soft rather than hard? They have to be able to shift. It has to be able to do that in the head. Why is that? Because otherwise, there's no way that's going to be able to make its way through the birth canal. And what's actually happening is, just picture like your fingers, they can slide past one another like this. And that's what it's actually doing. Okay? So what we see, this is also part of your identifications, is, I think it's on 227, it's the infant skull, and that's what I'm holding right here. Okay? So, how many of you have held, I'm sure you all have held an infant. Has anyone ever felt their head? Because what's a characteristic of their head? There is an extremely soft spot. Okay? So what you would be feeling is this right here. Okay? Because this is all cartilage in here. It does provide some protection, but it allows those bones to shift past one another. Not only do they shift in the cranial region, as childbirth is taking place, where is the next place after the cranial region that those bones really have to shift? Because once you get this, it's all downhill then. Shoulders, okay? So the scapula, which is probably there, it's probably soft. That's a lot of movement can take place on that vertebral column. Once the shoulders are out, then it's all downhill after that. Okay. So what we see happening here, these intermembranous bones, that's what you're looking at on this skull. They develop from masses of hyaline cartilage that are shaped like future bones. These look like bones, but they're not yet. They haven't gone through this process of ossification. Well, what is ossification? Well, it tells you that right there. The process of that cartilage hardening and forming bone tissue. So probably about the age of, 7 months, maybe up to a year, that cartilage is finally starting to harden and then forms bone tissue to actually protect the infant's brain then. The epiphyseal plate, that's where growth occurs. That's at the ends of these long bones, the epiphysis, and then the shaft then, of course, is your diaphysis. Okay, so that's where we had ended. So keep in mind that these osteoblasts and osteoclasts continually reshape these bones. That's what they do. Ossification then is that of bone hardening. Okay, so I've got a skull up here. So I just thought it might be worth our time. So as far as general areas are concerned, some of the more difficult portions can actually be the sutures. If a surgeon is using a suture, where do you suppose they're at in their operation? At the beginning or at the end? You're right. Why would we say you're close to the end? Yeah, because the sutures are a type of stitches that will hold that skin together. Okay, so I think there's 4 sutures you need to know, correct? There's a sagittal, a coronal, a lambdoidal, and a squamosal, correct? I see some people nodding our head yes. Okay. The 2 easiest, let's try to eliminate them so we actually know which ones we're referring to, okay? When you're looking at a diagram of a person, some of you might have an entire skeleton. A transverse plane means it's being cut to a superior, inferior portion. A sagittal plane, however, could be a cut here, could be a cut here. You're separating left and right. And if it's a mid-sagittal plane, that means it's going to be right down the middle like this, okay? And one of the things that they, I believe they do up at the anatomy lab, up at SDSUs, they actually have tools that do this. I know it sounds terrible, but these people have donated themselves to science. If you know it's like putting their, as a specimen or as a cadaver, putting them through a saw that actually cuts that straight in half. Okay? And again, that's something that they have chosen to do to donate themselves to science. So, if a mid-sagittal plane separates, I'll look at you people, separates left from right, okay? That's what you have running right down the middle, okay, of the cranium. That is your sagittal suture. It holds your two parietal bones together, okay? So sagittal suture, because it separates again like a sagittal plane, okay? The coronal suture, just picture, make a C like this, and you can turn it and set it right on top of the skull. So if you make a C, that means you set it right on top, and it holds your frontal bone to your two parietals. So this is your coronal suture. It's the most anterior or most to the front. Again, the sagittal suture holds your two parietal bones together. Okay? Then you have another one here in the back. What bone is this one here? What bone is this here in the back? Because you have a frontal, two parietals. This is the occipital bone. So what you have is a lambdoidal suture that holds your occipital bone to your two parietals. Then finally, probably the smallest of all of them, it's not that one is any larger than the other. I'm thinking that the lambdoidal probably is the longest because it has an arc to it. Well, so does the coronal, I guess. That's probably the longest. Then finally, you have what we call a squamosal suture, and that's really just maybe about an inch long, and that's holding your temporal bone, okay, this mastoid process here, to the parietal bone, okay? So, as a review, which one is this that holds that together? That's the coronal. Remember, you can take a C, set it right on top. I don't know if that helps or not. Then what goes right down the middle? This is your sagittal suture. And then it's not like it forms an L, but your occipital bone will be sutured to your two parietal bones with this one, the lambdoidal, and then finally the smallest one. Not that it's any less important, it's just not very big or hard or easy to see. Starts with an S. Squamosal suture. Okay. Oh, write that down then, please. Squamosal suture. S-Q-U-A-S-M-A-L. Squamosal.
Where'd you say that one was at?
Okay, that is actually back here. It's at the very bottom of your parietal bone, and it holds it to this mastoid process. Okay, so I'm looking to see if it's labeled in this book. It should be. Yes!
For the conduit process, did you mean like the conduit canal or canal? Because I can't.
Conduit process. That is probably, I'm thinking that's right here. Well, it should be should be on the mandible, I believe.
Is it this?
What does that say? Does it say coronoid process? Okay. Yeah.
We have both on our list.
Okay.
Should we just cross out the conduit?
Conduit process. Says it's where? I must have wrote it down twice. That red spot? Okay. Yeah, well, cross that off. Just know that that's what we're, oops,
That's the coronoid or the
conduit. Yep. Cross off the conduit process.
So it's basically the same. Is it
I just put it on there. I probably just misspelled it, that's all. Okay?
No, the coronoid and the conduit the same thing.
Yes. Yeah. Oops. Oh, this does come apart. Okay. What is it? What's this guy right here? It's a cheekbone. That's not what we're going to call it. Zygomatic bone. Okay? What's below the nose here? Maxilla, because the mandible is what actually does the moving. Here's your mandible, here's your maxilla. Okay? Then sphenoid is actually Latin for bat's wing. That's why it's called the sphenoid bone. So that's right behind the frontal bone there. And that's why they would refer to that as the sphenoid bone. So again, you've got a zygomatic bone, a maxilla, a mandible, and the sphenoid bone is here. Right behind that is the temporal bone. And then your sutures. And we've got one more day to go over this. I see we're running about 28 minutes, so we will stop there. We will catch up to you next time.